What are the key challenges that the Auditor General have, the Auditor General audit teams experience in the course of conducting these real-time audits? And how have these affected the audit outcomes? In the course of conducting these real-time audits, what mechanisms did the Auditor General teams have at their disposal to ensure that the accounting officers and accounting authorities of the public institutions acted quickly on identified control weaknesses to prevent leakages and potential findings? And the Auditor General, in closing his report, is making serious recommendations that the observation around this disaster, the response that was not inadequate, was also preceded by a serious lack of agency. And then there is a call on leaders and executive authorities, as well as the structures that are responsible for oversighting the disaster situation and the relief and the intervention, that they actually are triggered to action, so that the sense of urgency, because here this report is indicating that indeed the sense of urgency was seriously lacking on the part of executive and the officials and those dealing with this disaster relief, whether there's the provision of relief, whether it's the provision of tankering services. And it is reported here that some of these tankering services were leaking. How do you provide water tanks to communities that are leaking? And this does not reflect a caring government that we understand. And these matters, they need to be addressed. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mbumza. I'm looking at the best approach in dealing with this matter. This real-time audit is meant to help us to do oversight, and but obviously we'll have questions to the Office of the Auditor General. But maybe let's start focusing on government and allow the head of the National Disaster Management Center to pick out some of the issues that have been raised here by members that are relevant to government before we then allow the Office of the Auditor General. Can we start with yourself, head of this national? I think there are issues of coordination that have been raised, and issues of delivery on the commitments made. If there's anything you would want to say on that. Deputy Minister, I've not forgotten about you, but I'll allow you at the end.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, honorable members, Deputy Minister, and the colleagues from the department and the Auditor General. Chair, let me start by saying that the April 22 floods, when it happens, it finds us wanting. So I will admit that. But out of that April 22 floods, and also lesson learned from COVID.
Can we see the face, Chair?
Chair, my camera is, when I put the camera here, it's, I'm struggling with my laptop here. When I put the face here, it's going to kick me out. Sometimes you don't want even to unmute here.
Yeah, no, continue, but if possible, we would want to see you continue.
Yes.
On it.
Yeah. Yeah. Chair, what I was saying that we've learned a lot from COVID and also from April 22 floods. So what we've done, we've taken the real time audit report from the Auditor General, and we've assessed ourselves and see how best we can actually strengthening all the structures and make sure that we support the communities. So, Chair, what we have done, we were instructed to overhaul the disaster management system in the country, because we were informed that disaster management in the country is not working. So we are working with the department, the DPME, and also we contracted the service provider to assist us to overhaul the disaster management system in the country so that we can deal with the issue of the ecosystem. I think the Auditor General touched on the issues of the weaknesses of the coordination, specifically on the structures. But also, Chair, let me indicate that out of COVID, there are structures which we have now repurposed to purely focus on the issues of floods, to make sure that we deal with all the hazards as and when we experience. I think by now, we know that it's no longer debatable. We know that every time starting from December, January, February, and March, most of the provinces, they experience floods. Earlier this year, we were in Port St. John in the Eastern Cape, which a lot of infrastructures were affected. There also in Mpumalanga was affected, and in Pope and so on. So we have now strengthening all those structures while we are waiting for the repositioning of the disaster management in the country. That one, it is ongoing. But also, Chair, what we are doing also from our side as a National Disaster Center, we've taken upon ourselves to say we will make sure all the disaster grant funding projects and some of the projects funded through the reprioritization of the grants from different departments, we are going to lead a delegation coming from different departments and do the site visit. So that I think, Honorable, if I'm not mistaken, Taba indicated one of the lady, she was driving at night, end up actually, the road was not properly barricaded and end up actually got injured in the space. I think also she lost her life, if I'm not mistaken. So we're doing the site visit as well. But also, let me indicate that the sense of agency, I think Honorable Pumza also indicated on that issue. I think out of during April 22 floods, I think it was well captured even by Auditor General to say there was a lack of coordination, the sense of agency was not there from different departments. So as a National Disaster Center, we have made sure that each and every disaster now which happens, we make sure that there's a sense of agency. We urgently assist the communities in terms of the humanitarian reliefs, but also with the reconstruction. But also, we don't come into the site on that day, then we walk away and then we never monitor all the progress in relation to those activities. So, Chair, maybe in short, I can indicate that out of lesson learned of April 22 floods, there's a lot of things which were put in place now. Yes, there might be some gaps which we have identified as we implement changes in the National Disaster Management Center. We are continuously closing those gaps as well to make sure that then we respond to disasters, and then we make sure that we close those gaps. But Chair, let me indicate in terms of the expenditure, I think this one is very important. because also the report from Auditor General indicated. As much as the report is indicating the audit up to 11 July 2022 in terms of the non-expenditure or progress in terms of expending the allocated grants. So that problem is still continuing up to today. I'm saying up to today because there are grants which we funded different provinces and they are not moving in terms of expenditure. So what we have done to deal with the problem, we have engaged the MMs from the municipalities and the CFOs to say, let's come together and see how best we can assist them in terms of the expenditure. One issue which they've raised, which we are going to engage Treasury as well, and we have engaged Treasury, we need just to bring Auditor General on board, is the issue of emergency procurement, because they're saying when they walk that route, Auditor General actually come up with findings. So it's something which we are also working around it so that we're able to move at speed in terms of implementing all the projects related to disaster. Chair, I think I've covered some of the projects or some of the issues which was raised related to the Disaster Management Center. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much. In fact, we would also be interested when you want to use emergency procurement, whatever deal that you have with Treasury, public interest as well should be taken into account. So in other words, it's not only yourselves engaging the Auditor General. The Auditor General audit to make sure that the public has got confidence in government. So in other words, what you are talking about, we have interest in it. I was battling with the approach, but Ms. Maharaj, those issues that you think you are supposed to respond to in terms of this real-time audit, it's something that we may not understand because it's something new and related to the questions raised by members. Can I allow you?
Thank you so much, Honourable Chairperson, and thank you to the Honourable members for the questions as well. Indeed, the first point is, or the point that was widely made was that we are talking about a point in time. I think that was the request for me to take you through the special report that was tabled. But indeed, you know, as we all sit here today, it's been 1 year, an entire year since the flood has happened. What we continue doing is that as the expenditure incurs, and I think the previous speaker from the national disaster has mentioned, the spending has been really slow. And the real-time auditors is you've got to protect your independence as well as the Auditor General. So we need the spending to happen, and we get there as soon as the spending happens, we're there as soon as possible. Because what is happening is that we're auditing not a year later when we are going to do the normal regularity audit, but we're auditing much earlier, giving the findings to the respective accounting officers and audit authorities much earlier so that one can act immediately. And if there is even further expenditure that needs to be incurred. So if you look at example, the TRUs, if we already had built that certain amount of TRUs and we have a report that's telling us where our shortcomings are, surely the whole idea about a real-time audit is now you know what went wrong and you can fix it. You can fix it for the future TRUs thereafter that was going to be built. So that is the idea about the real-time audit, that it happens so much more earlier. If you can prevent losses, if you can prevent leakages, if you can improve on your controls and make sure that you are getting value for money, you have that opportunity to do so much, much more earlier. There was also questions about so I think I want to add to that is that we continued auditing. As the expenditure occurred, we did. We continued looking at the municipalities where there has been expenditure. There was expenditure in KZN and some at Eastern Cape. You will see that the AG is tabling her MFMH's general report at the end of this month, and we include the findings in that particular area as well. But what's important is that the ad hoc committee that was looking at this has been reinstated. So perhaps there will be more communication coming through where we can at any point in time pick up our findings that we have been focusing on the flood relief as we have been auditing, and as soon as we have the findings, we quickly engage with the respective auditees so that the action can definitely happen in response to those findings. There was questions around procurement and disparity. What has provincial treasury learned? What have they been doing? So you will see that they have responded to say that, there is always issues with supply chain, even in emergency situations. And the law provides for when there's emergency, so what do you do and how you go about doing it as well, ensuring that there is transparency, ensuring that there is value for money. So what they started doing in the province is they started looking at the pre-assessments, and you can see that has reduced the irregular expenditure that generally occurs. You also find that, where by us giving the findings much earlier, it gives us the opportunity to follow up. And that's what we have been doing since the special report has been issued formally. We have gone back to see whether those, in our second phase, we went back to see whether there has been responsiveness to the issues that were raised. The detailed findings are available. We will give the findings, what has caused these findings, recommendations as far as what one needs to do to rectify it, and we solicit commitments, and as well from the respective entities which we follow through. Yes. So we are looking at the municipalities. We would have audited the municipalities both in the Eastern Cape and the KwaZulu-Natal, where there was expenditure during the cycle. We work very closely with the Treasury Office as well as the COCTA offices to ensure that there is indeed no duplications, and that we are, as you would have heard me say, that when Treasury went out to do the TRUs and mobile units, we did different samples, but so that we could see or to get more coverage as far as we could get. What criteria we do focus on the spending. What we look at the spending, we understand what needed to be done in terms of responses, where the infrastructure damages have occurred, where there was a need for immediate responses as well. And really we keep a close lookout to say, what is the spending, what is happening? Have there been reprioritization of budgets? Is there cash injections from national and so forth? And that's how we're able to stay close to ensure that we do audit timeously and as the spending occurs. Yes, Honorable Member, it was indeed very saddening. It was heartbreaking to have a death on the roads. And as I mentioned earlier, you find that it's been a whole year later, but the roads is still there's still a response, very slow response in terms of responding to the fixing of the road infrastructure in the province. And unfortunately, we had such an incident as such. And the fact remains that, we have seen that there is fundings that have been made available, and how do the province respond quite quickly to ensure that these damage, especially where there is they're susceptible to this kind of thing, must be responded to adequately and much more quicker. There is definitely urgency required. The Honourable Member also drew attention to the recommendation that we made as an office to say that the disaster management capacity and capabilities, it's very important. We've had the COVIDs, we're having the floods, and perhaps there is more to come if we're being realistic. And how do we respond adequately when there is such disasters, and how do we build these capabilities to ensure that they will be effective? Yes, so you do not see a lot of Eastern Cape in this report. but we certainly have audited since it is as a result of the slow spending, and that is why you will not see them very prominent in this report. But certainly we have made some headway, and we have discussed findings in the province relating to the expenditure. We also found that there is, even in the cycle that we went through at the municipalities, the spending was very slow as far as the municipalities were concerned. Indeed, we did look at the Tonga treatment works, and we have in the second phase, and we definitely have issued our findings to the accounting officers at the eThekwini Metro. And we also find that, in essence, the spending and the response has been slow. The messaging is remaining the same. The whole idea is now to say, how is it that we are going to, as an office, we're doing our part in terms of keeping very close as to when and where the spending is happening, and we get on it as quickly as possible. We have the both cycles, and we found a way to be present and to monitor as the spending happens so that it can be audited. Be very quick in terms of issuing our findings to the accounting officers and accounting authorities, as well as the municipal managers, to say, you have this opportunity to rectify where needed, as well as improve the controls where needed, and more importantly, paying particular attention to what is actually being delivered out there in terms of the quality and the value for money. Honorable Chairperson, I hope I have responded to most of the questions that have been put out today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, those are the responses. I'll take hands if there are any follow-ups. For now, it looks like there's none. If none, can I then allow the Deputy Minister, we have been listening, and generally our function as the Portfolio Committee is to do oversight. Can we have from you closing remarks, Honorable Deputy Minister?
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, and greetings to honorable members, as well as the Office of the AG, including our staff from COCTA. Indeed.
Chair, we need to see the face of the Deputy Minister. Some of us will do. Deputy Minister, please.
Honorable Mkalepe, I'm a Deputy Minister for Traditional Affairs, so I'm in the Bundus. So you will soon see me. Don't worry. On a serious note, Chair, we have really listened to the report, the real-time report, which has been presented by the Office of the AG, which also talks to the efficiencies that have since been inserted into the accountability mechanisms, so as to ensure that there is absolutely no corruption in the utilization of the resources that are placed at our disposal. I think that on its own, it shows the kind of commitment we have in ensuring that for every resources placed before us, we account. And of course, that accountability should also ensure that there is a efficient and effective use of everything for which we have been capacitated as the department to dispose.
that also talks to the quality of the service. So obviously we will look into the report. As we all know, it affects various spheres of government, largely the local sphere of government. And therefore, in the context of the district development model, we believe that after having thoroughly studied the report, we will engage the affected municipalities and ensure that there is full accountability. We've noted all the areas of concern that have been expressed. Equally, the worrisome concerns expressed by honorable members here, to which we also agree that we need to up our game, because at the end of the day, everything else that matters is about our people, is about the citizens of the country. We have no choice but to ensure that the kind of service which we render should be about restoration of dignity as a constitutional imperative. It's there, so it's a non-negotiable. And all of us have to ensure that the kind of service that we render resonates with those fundamental constitutional imperatives. So I want to assure the committee that together as a department and all role players under the stewardship of Minister Nkatimeng, working together with Deputy Minister Pakstau, we will do everything to ensure that all the findings and recommendations made by the Auditor General are actually adhered to, and including those who are supposed to be held accountable. We will also look into that aspect as well. So with those few closing remarks, Chair, I just want to assure the committee that it's not going to be business as usual. We will make sure that there is significant difference in dealing with issues to the satisfaction of not even us as public representatives, but also the community must be satisfied with the service that we render. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, I think lessons that I can see your hand, Honorable Mkalipi. Can I allow you?
Oh, okay, Chair. No, I wanted to check if you saw what I posted on the group, Chair.
I saw. I was going to talk to you.
All right. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thanks.
Well, Chair.
I don't know now what is happening. No, she is asking if I noted what she posted, which I said I'm going to respond to it as well in my closing remarks. Otherwise, we are closing the meeting. I wanted to take her hand before I close. I think what comes out of this is for all of us to learn on this issue of real-time audit, what its purpose is, and what benefits can we derive from it, both government and parliament. Government, what is coming out clear is that there must be a coordinated response to challenges of disaster. I think the real-time audit is beginning to say there are still gaps. There are areas of improvement that needs to be done. And I think as well, from the side of Parliament, our coordinated response to the problem of disasters was the establishment of an ad hoc committee. So even with us, I'm sure when it talks about coordination, I'm not sure if we are ahead of government or we still have some lessons to learn from it, but we will derive those lessons from the report that was presented by the ad hoc committee. So in other words, we must keep on engaging on how do we respond to challenges, because even with us, it will be a multi-party committee. When I say multi-party, not necessarily political parties, I'm talking about portfolio committees, then consolidated into an ad hoc. So we must engage with that report that they presented. It might not help us to focus as we would wish to focus as a portfolio committee, but let's learn lessons from there. There are specific matters that I think I've indicated already would want to execute that, especially when it relates to the April 2022 disaster. We have not gone to KZN as a portfolio committee, and I've indicated the intention to do so, especially that we are collecting reports, and there are areas that we would want to focus on to conduct what we believe is our work as a portfolio committee. So in other words, even our questions now here, they are not so specific because we have not been to KZN. And I've indicated that to the executive secretary, though I noted some conditions. I don't expect any conditions now. We must go to KZN to look at specific matters that are related to the laws that we are supposed to oversight their implementation. So that would be one. Now, on the issue of real-time audit and the actual audit, I think the presenter did indicate that this real-time audit, it's an interim kind of arrangement meant to help departments to deal with problems that can be indicated on that time, but it does constitute part of the actual audit. So when the audit outcomes are reported, would have time to focus on those areas and discuss them. In fact, when the audits of Public Finance Management Act comes out, would be able to focus on that. Municipal Finance Management Act outcomes come out, would also be able to. So in other words, this is an interim report meant to help the executive to correct where they can, but at the end, it would be reported in the actual audit. So in other words, this is also helping us to get a sense of what is happening, so that as we continue, we are able to improve on our approach of conducting oversight. I think generally we should conclude this and say we thank the Office of the Auditor General for the information, and it is also helping us to consolidate our information as we continue to do oversight on behalf of members of the public. Otherwise, the meeting is now adjourned. Thank you very much for attending, Honorable Deputy Minister, and the Head of Regularity Audit, Ms. Maharaj, and honorable members. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The prince must be seen next time, Chair.
Okay.
No.
Recording stopped.